Yeah, right. Sorry. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another E5 podcast. We're back again after another extended break because we only do these when we feel like it, or there's something to talk about. My name is Paul Meenan, and I am joined by my ever-beloved and treasured tag team partners. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm JW. And it's Dave Watts here, Sparky Ninja.
The three amigos are back. Now, this is totally different. I'm going to be leading a lot of the talking in this. So it's as we speak, it's like the 3rd or 4th of January 2025. Our wonderful friends at Fix Radio that I occasionally do the Fix Radio Electrical Show co-hosting on. I'm the technical good-looking one, as you can probably all tell. I did like a talk with Tom, which got recorded and edited. And I'm not saying it got edited badly, but it got edited and it opened me up for a thorough kicking on social media. So I want to debunk that. And today's one, we're going to be talking about AI in electrical installations and that whole shenanigan. So there was a wonderful man, a treasured man called Derek Thompson, who we lost sadly a few years ago to cancer. He was a very good friend of ours, and he ran a thing called Electrical Training Trust, which was the Northern Ireland Spark Safe scheme. Wonderful man, wonderful team over there. And about 9 years ago, Dave.
9 years ago.
I went to Northern Ireland with a copy of the draft for public comment of the 17th edition, Amendment 3, I think it was. And I did a talk. And I did this talk because my family from Northern Ireland, and it's very near and dear to my heart. And I got asked, do this talk. And it basically about 20 guys all work agriculture. And at the end of it, they were all like, right, talk to us about agriculture. And I was like, they weren't really interested in all the changes. They wanted to know about the slurry farms, the cattle farms, the agricultural side. Mm-hmm. And every year he has asked me back to do stuff. I did my 18th edition course over there. We've done lots of events that they call Get Connected. Now it's Stay Connected. Last year we missed it, but this year we were back. Yourself, Dave, you were there. So this and the next podcast, we thought we'd just record this with the presentation. So if you're listening, please watch the video, although Spotify now does video, which is amazing. And yeah, we'll get into it now. Lots and lots of comments. There is no way in hell I can respond to them all. But just to be clear, I will say this once, and I'm not going to say it again. I now actually sit on British Standard committees. 3 of them currently. And potentially growing. So as I've always said, do something different every year. My oh my, once you go into committee world, you get sucked right in. And that's not a bad thing. So nobody panic. So the crux of the story is this. I have a young engineering apprentice, a very clever, smart man, and he introduced me to this ChatGPT, AI derivative. I'm probably getting it wrong, but me, I'm a bit old school, pen and paper, back of fag packet stuff, do it in your head. And he showed me a load of stuff, and it was good, but it was wrong. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, this is a tool. This is a potentially dangerous one. Holy cow, this produces volumes of work very quickly. But if you put in bad stuff, you get out bad stuff. So it made me really, really think. So I banned him from using it because we need to learn it the old-fashioned way, because if the internet stops working and power stops, you need to be able to think on your feet, same as an apprenticeship. Sometimes you'll go out to places where there is no power, so you need to be able to use your hands to do a lot of the work. Well, that's how old school apprenticeships were. I'm showing my age now. So every year I went, and last year I covered diverted neutrals in Ireland for the first time, which got quite a interesting shocked silence, and we had a bit of a laugh. And I realised that most Northern Irish people have a very warped sense of humour, aka me. So I do have a warped sense of humour, and I know most people probably think I'm demented for it. So they said, can you come back? And I said, I'll only come back if I've got something new that I can talk about. And because it's Northern Ireland and it's close to my heart, I thought I'll save it up rather than podcast it. Do it there first, then do the podcast. So here we are, long story short. So what I'm going to do now is, anyone on YouTube, sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. And we are now recording, hopefully, which is good. So what I did was, they asked me about 6 months in advance, what's the title? So I was this honestly, I was watching Quantum Leap. so I thought, Quantum Leap, yeah.
But they've not asked you to come and speak about this. They've said, would you like to come and talk, and what would you like to talk about? Is that
I have an open invite to do the lead, not the lead, but the last talk of the day.
Okay.
So it has to be good, it has to be bold, and I don't really care if I go up there and make a fool of myself. If people laugh and they learn and they go away and think, box ticked. Because I've found of all the speakers and educators I've ever watched, those who inspire me are the ones who lead with passion and vigor, or they give me a visual that I can understand. Dave, let's be perfectly frank here. You have taught me loads about electrical installations from the phenomenal use of visuals, and I can only try and be on your level. And hopefully over the years, your direct and indirect teachings have got me to a place where you can go, well done, son, proud of you. Fingers crossed. So what we did, and we'll start off. So the talk's called a Quantum Leap in Electrical Installations, and it was a vague, what's the next thing? Because Dave, 5 years ago, we did a little talk for the first time ever with green screen together, where we spoke about the future of fuse boards. And let's be perfectly frank, a lot of the old stuff we've predicted is there or thereabouts. And John, you feel free to jump in anytime you want and laugh and even mock me. So what I did was I thought I'm going to start this off, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the TV program Quantum Leap for 45 minutes. Henceforth a picture of Sam Beckett and the DVD cover of Quantum Leap, my favourite show from the 90s. And I'll tell you, Dave, the looks that I got. Well, and there was this one young girl at the front that went, seriously? And I was like, yep. And I'm like, no, it's me. I'm mocking you. I'm having a laugh at your expense. But it was a great TV program where Sam did good things to help fix the problems in the world. So let's see if my computer works now. We'll move on. Right, so I introduced myself. And then I thought to myself, I'm not going to call it a Quantum Leap. I'm going to call it the power of AI, or in Northern Ireland, I. Because anyone who knows anyone from Northern Ireland, when they say the word yes, they go, oh, I. And if anybody has Northern Irish family, you'll walk into a room and all that everyone is doing is going, I. And that's just yes. It's a language. Northern Irish slang is incredibly complex because that one word means so many different things. So I thought I'd call it the power of I. I is in yes. So yes to AI. We're not going to be able to run away from it like AFDDs. So we need to embrace it in some form. So I then started to have a chat with ChatGPT. And I didn't like it. And then I paid £20 a month subscription. And boy, oh boy, did it level up. So I paid a subscription to ChatGPT, and I was having conversations while I was driving to work in the van. And that is true. I've got it on my phone, and it's got an accent, and it's a North London accent, because you can tell it to change its voice, and it will talk to you in whatever accent. So if you want it as a Caribbean person, have a Caribbean accent and engage with it like that. That's how insane it is. So I've been on a weird journey over 6+ months. So what I thought I'd do is I'd talk about what is quantum, in some insights, because I like to do random facts, what the journey is so far in electrical installations, what could be next, barriers, I to AI, i.e. yes to AI, AI and concepts, which is my concept, which has caused such controversy online, a little bit of a warning, and then some conclusions. And the picture of I asked ChatGPT to draw an image of a warden of a PVC prison guarding electrons. And that is what the image is. It's a PVC. John's sitting there going, I knew Paul was mad, but he is bonkers. You wait till you see some images in this. So quantum, just because I looked at multiple aspects of the word, is there a tie into it? So in physics, a quantum is the smallest possible discrete unit of any physical property. It represents the minimum amount of something that can be used in interaction. For example, and you can use multiple examples, electricity, a small unit of charge being an electron, a fundamental unit. So a fundamental leap. It's a long drawn out link, but it just links to the title of quantum, which I love. And there's our wonderful warden of a PVC prison. Do not ask me why AI generates electrons looks like a Chinese woman kneeling down there, and then some that are clearly escaping through these PVC. So how crazy, and what much, because these ChatGPTs, they're programmed with probably more books than what John Ward has got. Forgive me, John. And they have a base knowledge already, but they're only as good as the data and the questioning and the reasoning and the logic that you ask it. So very powerful tool, but very random images. And if anybody's got it, ask ChatGPT, if you use it, to draw an image of what it thinks you do. Because my one drew a picture of railways and electricity, everything, and nothing else. And I realised, I drew an image and I went, I do nothing else. It's really bad. So yeah, a warden of a PVC prison. There you go. But for this talk, what I was going to say was quantum was a metaphor to describe the smallest or most significant change or advancement in surprising or unusual ways. So that's what this quantum leap is about. It's about significant or even small changes that surprise and amaze people. And that's what the conversation with AI led to. So just before we get in, though, and we'll get to that, that's kind of the main events. What makes Northern Ireland different from the mainland? So Northern Ireland, 3.6% of Northern Ireland is urban. In England, it's 84.4. In Northern Ireland, rural is 96.4, so farmlands, but in England, it's 15.6. So there's a hell of a lot more rural electrical installation, and that came from the Northern Irish Statistics Association. So the majority of the work leans towards 7671, 705 agricultural and horticultural premises, which is, the minute I said that, it was, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of what we do. A lot of the bread and butter, unless you're the major electrical contractors who do all the cities and towns. So I asked this question, and it's one that we'll use on the forum of YouTube and all the other places. Regulation 1311. Does the regulation talk about the safety of people, property and livestock, or the safety of people, livestock and property? So for those people going away and look at it, it's a good one to look up. What are we more concerned about? Is it people, livestock and property, or people, property and livestock? It's an interesting one. And it then continues to talk about danger in a reasonable use, basically. So reasonable use of electrical installation, is reasonable foreseeable? Or is it just, I think, it's an interesting conversation.
Who defines reasonable?
Yes, it was interesting to know, obviously, that the livestock is more important than property. That kind of shocked me a bit, because I thought it was people, property, livestock, but it's not.
Well, livestock is basically, in those environments, livestock is...
But if you'd have asked me 3 years ago, to be honest with you, I would have said, yeah, people, property, livestock. It's not. People, livestock, property. So are we missing a trick there? And this is what I was trying to do, is trying to get the electrical contractors in the room are experts in their field. They know what they know, and they're up for that journey. Now, some of the pictures, John's just going to want to kill himself now. Sorry, John. So Sparky Moo, it generated I asked for a picture of a Northern Irish electrician who's obsessed with cows. Right. That's what I got. I got a human being with a cow's head, like something out of Clash of the Titans.
And he has some kind of mega slash
with a mega mix. With a weirdly spelt mega.
It's a fluke looking mega, or a mega looking fluke.
The randomness of this is hysterical and quite disturbing. So I said to everyone, look, we all know domestic, commercial, industrial were the bread and butter of electrical installations. But what about the isms? And we spoke about this a lot on Fixed Radio, which is doing some amazing charitable stuff at the moment. It's mind-blowing, which is why I still do it, by the way, just to be clear, because they are doing charitable stuff, which is great. But the specialisms. So agricultural, specialism. Horticultural, specialism. Renewables, PV and wind. Again, mate, some of the stuff I've been looking up on them in the last couple of weeks, it's getting more and more complex. Whether it's just, I don't know if you've seen the new prosumer book that's coming out. That's in DPC until the 10th of January. There's lots and lots more emerging. I think that's going to become a bit of a mess.
The technology is still getting developed, isn't it? And
yes.
Innovated. So
you've got the EV, the BESS, battery energy storage systems, if we make our mind up on what it's going to be called. You've got smart homes, smart buildings, and then you've got the race to net zero. So there are all these specialisms, none of them fully aligned, all of them expected to fit under the domestic, commercial, industrial banner. Do you know what? The more I look at this stuff, the more I realise it is a separate specialism that is a bolt on. It's a step up. And I genuinely would advise anyone to get yourself into renewables, because I do think it's where we're going by default. Whether we want it or not, it's irrelevant. People are being sold the dream of renewable technology. I mean, John, are you getting more inquiries on this, or?
Not particularly, but then it's not something I've really advertised into going into. So that's kind of it. But I've seen plenty of it, and I think the problem is with that. All this prosumer stuff is that all the books and the references, whatever, are trailing behind what people are actually already doing. Mm-hmm. All this stuff is being put in, and there's all the sort of documentation, whatever, for it is just not there. So it's this big sort of catch-up thing. I mean, there's people out there with batteries and in their house and not small ones either, like massive stuff, and even stuff that people have just sort of bought in themselves and just knocked together and stuck in a shed, and it's already happening. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing the whole product side of things as well, because there's more drives from passes that are coming out for products to be even more efficient than they are. So ironically, I was looking at a TV the other day, and my TV downstairs is an A-rated 144 watts.
Yeah.
But I was looking at a telly, the exact same telly, and it was a G-rated and 88 watts.
Yeah. Have you seen the new LED lights or the actual lamps now?
Oh God, no!
They've changed the rating. So a while ago, all LED lamps were A-rated.
Yeah.
And now most of the ones that used to be A-rated are now E-rated. And now there's new ones you can get, which are like C or B, or there's a couple out now which are actually A, and they like use half the power of the old ones and give out the same brightness. So,
but 50 times the carbon footprint. So no actual efficiencies whatsoever when you look at the whole life of it. So yeah, interesting stuff, and there is more British standards to come around products. I can't say here because that's the secret Santa stuff, but yeah. So I kind of started during my conversations. This is where the pictures get really random, John. So I basically said, look, everybody here is obsessed with Section 705, and I then asked ChatGPT, give us a picture of like loads of Northern Irish electricians who do loads of work with cattle, talking about the wiring regs. And it came up with a picture of cows reading the wiring regs, hence picture of the screen. And I sat there and looked at it and went, this is weird, but I love weird. So I thought I'll just leave these pictures in to make them think, what the hell is this guy on? And also a therapy club reading wiring regs as well. It's quite insane. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go, right, guys, this is agriculture and horticultural. You're the experts. The Northern Ireland electrical community is incredibly small. Everybody knows everybody. And I wanted to do something to shake the tree. And I said, look, is Section 705 too generic? Now, I read it a couple of times on a boat going over. I think it is. And so I wanted to ask a question. Does it cover enough? Where is the information that's missing covered? So stuff like, so agricultural was more the big livestock. Horticulture is more the growth of, carefully grown plants, etc., and all this more specialist stuff. So what about soil health? Because I actually was reading, this is how sad I was, Dave, researching this. There are documents online that talk about how current energy flowing through the ground of a magnitude can actually disrupt the soil health.
That seems logical, doesn't it?
It's totally logical. No, can't find a standard on it anywhere.
Anyone who's watched like Clarkson's Farm knows how important the quality of the soil is with regards to the yield that they'll get. Yep. And it makes perfect sense that where current wasn't there before, could start to, tarnish the yield of any soil.
Yeah, definitely.
So soil health was a new one on me. John, any thoughts on it? I bet you've got a book on it somewhere, haven't you?
No, I haven't actually. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, soil health. I mean, it is important, and there's this sort of fits in with this, where they're putting like the solar panels all over the farmland and all that sort of thing. And there's a sort of public perception that if you look out in the countryside, all of the countryside you can see is prime quality farmland, and it's not, because huge amounts of countryside is rubbish and you can't grow anything on it. So yeah, soil quality and soil health is massively important, and you can't just say, oh yeah, there's a nice bit of farmland, that's part of stuff. That's not it at all. So yeah, there's a huge amount of area there. So
it's been an interesting journey of debate, and I'm not joking when I literally say every day driving down to, because I'm about an hour and a half drive into work, and I'm just sitting there having chats about different stuff, and I've literally filled and maxed out and had to delete a load of stuff because of the amount of conversations I was having, maxed out the allowed bandwidth that you have on chat GBT. So ecosystems, well-being of animals and crops. Is that considered enough? Is there sufficient guidance? We talk about it on strike and stroke protection. You see all those pictures and videos of animals being killed from pole dewirement. Is enough done there? Integration of irrigation systems, which fall under horticultural. Irrigation systems really important for crops. So what about supply quality, supply integrity, resilience of supply? If you lose a supply and it's a certain spray system or feeding system, what happens? How much money are you willing to invest? Where is the information on this? I've looked. Trust me, I've looked. Climate and farm management systems. Do we have BMSs for farms? Are they getting more smart? Resilience, aka failure of power supplies. And this is where the room, I mean, you were in the room, Dave. They were quite on this bit. Supplies to agri. Although somebody did say I was in that room, they weren't all shocked. Well, they were, because you were looking at me and I was looking at everyone. So, what about other considered standards? So I have looked around. Now, to quote the beloved Mr. Skirm, machinery and LV directive is where we would always start. We should. Here's one I found, BS 8646, which is the use of robots for crops. So all these smart machines and smart tractors, and there's evidently a bigger drive around plant and animal welfare around these machines. And LiDAR, these machines now have LiDAR scanning them and all sorts. They've got so much intelligence built onto the machinery. How's that data being mined? How's it been integrated? How are electrical installations supporting that? And that's the thing, to quote you, Dave, utilization, planning of your installations. Is that done enough? I know a lot of farmers, because my uncles are farmers. My family were cattle farmers. It's just move the cattle around the mountain, grazing, take to the vets and all that, or getting the vet out. Emergency procedures, do we have them? Where are they? What about monitoring, BMS, maintenance and access, HSE guides, local authority, health requirements, and any other training and guidance? There's nothing for that particular subject of agricultural and horticultural. So my address to the room was, NAPIT were there, go away and use the minds in the room to pool your knowledge and create a guidance note, because let's be honest about NAPIT love writing books, NIC were there. They can all work on it together. Go and write a book that gives more information for agriculture and horticultural, so that we get a common understanding of what the minimum requirements we should be thinking about. That is a book that you would sell to the urban agriculture and horticultural installation electrician. That would be their Bible.
Would that not be obviously challenged, or would the production of that kind of guidance or standard be challenged by the railways? Because obviously we just talked about the railways so much, and traction energy, and the fact is there's energy adjacent or near to that. Would the idea of developing a pass or something about soil conditions and energy in the ground for the use of crops and horticulture not heavily point the finger at rail?
To a certain extent, yes, because you can go out to a field and you can put 2 bits of metal in the ground, and if you're a few miles away from railway station, you've got an oscilloscope, you can actually pick up energy flowing. If anyone wants to go and learn about it, go to York EMC services. They do the best railway course ever. But that's not necessarily that traction current dumping into the ground will destabilize the ground. That, I think, is a separate piece. I think what they need to understand is the basic soil conditions for what they need for an electrical installation. And also, I mean, it's like when I was in Northern Ireland, we went to a college and they had a perfect square field out the back. And so what we did was we were doing electrode testing. I said, well, there's a perfect example here where you've got a bit of marsh, you've got a bit of stone. So why don't you do a grid and map out the soil resistivity for the whole field as an experiment? You now have a benchmark. And every year, each group of learners then has to go out, do their soil resistivity testing. So each year you update the stats with each team of people to make sure you're doing it right. You can then see soil conditions degrade or improve. But more importantly, when you're doing your earth electrode testing and you're installing, you already know what the soil conditions are. So you should understand roughly what you're going to get. They had a perfect training area for that. Perfect. We just need to try and give people more knowledge on this, because there's evidently information, white papers, which is research papers out there, that talk about volumes of energy destabilizing. What's the word? I'm trying to look for the word. It like breaks down the not the physicals, but the like the soils, the alkalines, the ability for the soil to perform depending on what. And yes, near railways would probably be a bit pants, but most people won't see that because most railways are just covered in weeds. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for horticultural, as in growing specific plants in these specific conditions, you're not necessarily going to grow it next to a railway.
Well, yeah, I remember when we did our podcast, I think it was Kirsty, she said something, don't misquote, I think she said something along the lines, you shouldn't live within 150 or 200 yards of a railway line or something, when we talked about obviously the energy. I've always remembered that.
I work on a railway and I wouldn't live near one. To be perfectly frank, I think it was one of the standards years ago on Southern region. It was about 250 meters away I remember off the top of my head. I need to dig them out. It's been so many years. So henceforth, my picture, AI, by the way, generated this, John. I'm not that good an artist. And it was my challenge to people, which was electrical installation of farms. Where is the guidance? Where is the book? I genuinely think, I know we're in a world where for the last 5 years, everybody wants to write code breakers and all these books. But I genuinely think we are missing an electrical installations in farms. Just like, 7009, there's stuff out there for fairgrounds, for all this sort of stuff. There's nothing for horticulture. Most of this country is farmland.
Yeah, well, most of Dorset, they're here. Yeah, like here, most of Dorset is rural.
Yeah.
And it's all fields and farms and little tiny lanes.
I think the thing is, we always allude to the fact that we just follow 7671, and while 7671, as you say, is property, livestock, and people, there's, you've said it before about the lack of guidance on, DC currents and an AC network, and it says about the external influence code, is it AEM or something, and there being a reference to guidance that's not in there. And we've talked about the fact that there's not a lot of focus on electromagnetic effects. It's more about the thermal effects. It just feels that the phenomena of utilizing an electrical system, which 7671 claims to capture, doesn't appear to be in our general understanding.
Do you know what? You've nailed it on the head there. We are concentrating a lot on the thermal effects of electrical installations, but not the electromagnetic. And yet everything we're doing with this new technology, this switch mode power supply and these microelectronics, is going to introduce more and more EMI, EMC, EMF risk. We're not set up for it.
No, we're not.
Interesting. So moving on to the next risk. So I know we're slightly drifting, but hey, we're all talking.
That's what we do.
This is what AI. So I asked for a picture of EV installation in Northern Ireland with electricians obsessed with cows. It evidently realised the obsession was cows. It's quite disturbing that cow sitting down with his crack showing. But anyway, just watch the video, folks. So 722 is another one because why? It's a golden pot. It's that next gold rush, the EV gold rush. Do we have enough there for Northern Ireland? Is there enough information for installers? David, you've been doing some of the leading training in this, and we probably need to do a separate podcast on this, but we're still scratching the surface on EV.
Again, as we said earlier on, as John alluded to, technology is still developing, and our knowledge and our experience is still developing. We've got councils, you've got you've got new standards, new things being promoted in one direction, which conflicts another, and so we keep going backwards when we try to go forwards.
Yep. So this was the bit where I wanted to then stop and pause because I knew that was quite disturbing, some of those last images, but hey, call me Mr. Random. So this was the journey. I wanted to remind everyone the journey we've gone on because it's quite scary. So obviously everybody knows the 143-year journey now. First edition, 4 parts, 3 or 4 pages, 1882. Same year Spurs were formed. We're now on the Amendment 4 DPC. 8 parts, 608 pages. It's only going to get bigger. The American one's just come out again.
Yeah.
The American NEC has come out again.
But again, in the States, you've got the licensing and you've got free access to it that you can go and you can review, and then you can actually then purchase what you need to use.
Yes, and that's another good point. So standards are free if you know where to go and get them, or they're incredibly cheap if you know where to go and get them. And the American NEC is free if you know where to go and get and sign up. So that's a very good point. So we're on a 143-year journey. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We shouldn't be afraid of it. One of the things I wanted to kind of just remind people of this journey, we started off with fuse wires. And again, first edition, regulation 8 and 9, 2 of my favourites. There should be a connection with the main circuit, a safety fuse constructed of easily fusible metal, which would be melted if the current attained any undue magnitude and thus cause the circuit to be broken. So this is the very early first edition requirements for a fuse. Now, they didn't develop requirements for fuses till, I think, John, it was the 1930s, to late 20s, 30s, if I remember rightly, where they actually started to standardise. And then in 1939, obviously, we had BS 842, which was one of the early ones with the earth leakage breakers. In fact, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. BS 842, 1939, voltage operated earth leakage breakers, one of the early ones. We had these 2 bad boys, ELCBs and VO ELCBs. We've covered these in other podcasts, so we're not going to go through all of it, but and it's on the YouTube page. But basically, when you kind of set it out as we've gone from a wire in 1882 Then we got fuses, BS88 3061s. We've then obviously gone on a journey, BS3871s into the current 60898s. We then went to BS4293 RCDs to now the 61008s. Then we've merged it all together into the 61009s. There is a logical timeline journey, which we have put in a timeline in other stuff. Now we've got AFDDs, which is more technology, basically a little computer monitoring the waveform and doing all them magical things that we can't see. We've got surge protection, which I think caused a lot of controversy, but I don't think any of us in the room would disagree that an SPD is a valuable add to any electrical installation.
To be fair, I'm seeing more and more examples of where they were essential lately.
Yep. I've got them downstairs, got them on all my stations. They're brilliant. We've now got this OPDD, which I now have a copy of IET01, thanks to my subscription to all the IET bookshelf malarkey. We've obviously covered POP devices in previous. There is a huge range of protective devices. And that kind of leads on to the next point of thinking. So naturally, everyone will go, oh, hang on, slow down. There's too many devices. Now, when I first started, the AFDD, Surge, OPDD, POPs, didn't hear of them, not a thing. RCD was an optional extra or supplementary, to quote the 16th edition, supplementary protection. So this is the bit that we didn't get into the fixed radio. So I basically, what I did was I took BS3871, 60898, 61008, 61009, 62606, uploaded them and analysed them via a chat. So I talked about what the pros,
so you got ChatGPT to read it as well, so you can then discuss it.
And then what I wanted to do was, I literally put in, I said, read this, analyse this, and I want to see the pros and the cons against standards that we will look at later. So it was a slow ingestion of 4 or 5 standards, which I got permission for, so nobody panic. Because believe it or not, most people who sit on the BSI committees now use ChatGPT and AI to analyse stuff. Mind blowing, eh? And it's about efficiencies. So this is what it came up with. So I was going, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I have an idea. What is the next thing? And basically, I then said, well, if I could summarize this, and this, I need an intelligent mind. So what would I call that? And it came back and said, Paul, an intelligent circuit guardian. Now, ignore the picture because ChatGPT is crap at drawing pictures, but it kind of tried to come up with something that had DC, a mind, a control, and all these other bits. But basically, what it summarized it as was smart adaptive protection system that dynamically adjusts its setting based on load profile and characteristics. So effectively, what it is, it's a smart mind, it's a hub that isn't affected by connected loads, isn't affected by DC leakage, is completely immune to all that, but monitors every single device and then tells the device how to react.
So the devices are still there,
but they're adaptive.
So it communicates with them.
Yes, it's a communication and AI monitoring hub. So you would have a CT on the line, the neutral. You would have a CT bidirectional on the earth. You'd have your broken neutral detection built in there. You'd have your surge protection. You would have all of this capability built into the DNL. Now, we know it happens because you look at Schneider Isobar P boards.
Yeah.
Everything's built in, power quality, power factor, all there already, been available for 5-6 years.
Well, it's just basically, it's just all you need is clamps around conductors and something a brain to decide what the information means.
Or have it built into the boards in some way, so it's modular, so it's plug-in. So my words to it was, it would be good if it was modular. Now, I was hoping it would draw me an image of that, something that just can mount into effectively it's a rail box. So I was thinking to myself, how does this work? How does this integrate? And that's where I came up with a MODUS system. But unfortunately, the edit talked about MODUS and not this. So the new device is the ICG. Henceforth, the British standard question. Because if you could develop something like this, which is an intelligent, imagine having not to worry about a Type A device. Imagine not having to worry about all this because you've got something that's more immune, that is monitoring everything that's going on in the installation and can make informed nanosecond-driven decisions. We don't have that, as far as I'm aware. Forgive me, all the BMS engineers and all the other geniuses of the world, if we do. I'm only talking from my experience, so apologies if this is wrong, but being able to plug in DC, etc. How does that look? How does that work? So we came up with the ICG, Intelligent Circuit Guardian, which is quite cool. I'll be honest with you, I was getting rather excited at 6:30 in the morning in a van driving into London. Way too excited, to be perfectly frank. It ticked all my nerdy boxes, and John's just sitting there going, "Dear Lord, what's he on?" But what could be next? John, what do you think about the ICG before we go on? Tell me I'm batshit crazy if you want.
Well, obviously it's not a real device at the moment, but
Oh,
I mean the concept is fine. I mean, yeah, why not have something that can do all that? I mean, it's
honest to God, the comments on social media from that little fixed radio clip, you would think I'd insulted the second coming of Christ. It was just mind-blowing. It's an informed opinion. I have not, let's be clear, I have no IP on this. I am not trying to look for money from it. I don't want money from it. All I want is, this is an opinion piece of an engineer saying, look what could be done. So just stay with us on this mad journey of insanity. Trust me, people used to call Tesla mad, and look at all the amazing things that man did. I'm not comparing myself to him before anybody says. So let's just look at some of the features. Real-time monitoring. So the ICG monitors normal electrical parameters like current, voltage, power factor, harmonics. All can be done now. It uses advanced sensors, Internet of Things connectivity to stay updated on electrical environment. That includes overcurrent protective devices, earth leakage, AFDD capability, OPDD, etc. It then has adaptive protection. So based on the monitored data, the Intelligent Circuit Guardian adapts its protection settings dynamically. So if it sees a problem, what can it do to change the protection setting? Can it dial it down? Can it adjust things? What capabilities will this have? I don't have all the answers. This is why I'm putting this out. The whole point of this was to put a concept into the big industry and let the industry see if it would work. Rather than just selling us something and not explaining it.
But you would program the outputs of what it's doing, though. You would say the I delta is this, and the permissions is that.
Well, yeah. So you would configure it. You could configure it as a device with monitoring parameters, which could come from 61008, 7671, etc. But give it the ability to, if it goes within a certain parameter, if the voltage goes too high, or there is a change in current flow or fault current levels, that it can automatically adapt based on fault current levels. This is the thing. It can adapt based on leakage, because that leakage, if you know, could be a prelude to a diverted neutral. It could be picking up a diverted neutral. So it can monitor the installation leakage. It can monitor if there's a diverted neutral. It can make a sane assessment. And once that broken pen happens, it's really well informed. But it's informing you already because it's monitoring that data all the time. So henceforth, adaptive protection. So based on the monitor data, the ICG adapts its protection dynamically. It can differentiate between a temporary inrush current and a real fault, ensuring precise tripping. So we eliminate nuisance tripping as well. There's loads that can be done here. I am not the developer. I'm not the maker. I don't have a workshop to build it. This is just putting it out into industry. Because I'll be honest with you, I get the raging ump when a manufacturer comes out of a new board and you just look at it and you go, who's come up with that?
You think lost opportunity. I say past 3 years I've always thought missed opportunity, especially with my work I do with thermal and arc flash and all this stuff. And I think missed opportunity with so many times where stuff's been specified and it's not been, as good as it could be.
So this was discussed as like a domestic potential commercial board. So predictive maintenance, by analysing trends and patterns we know from existing stuff like the Schneider stuff, it can easily predict when there's a build-up of current or is excess loaded. So it can predict potential issues before they become critical, enabling proactive rather than reactive maintenance. That reduces downtime, prolongs the lifespan of the components. So it's that smart. It knows, hang on, something's going wrong here. Why is my load consistently creeping up over a 12-week, 12-month profile, whatever? What's going on? Does somebody need to come and have a look? Energy management integration, we know, what is it? 60947-8-1, 2, and 3, depending on what part. We know at some point, Dave, there's going to be a role of an energy manager. There's going to be more requirements. And I've said before in a podcast, eventually, give it 10, 20 years, we'll end up doing EPCs on wiring because it will be an economic stimulus, probably being controversial there. But energy management integration, so it can communicate with smart meters. So how cool would that be if you had something in parallel that could communicate via the smart meter infrastructure, if you could, And then home automation as well. So whether it be Bluetooth or whatever, Wi-Fi enabled, it would optimize energy consumption. So it would allow individual circuit monitoring so that you could be more intelligent with it, shifting loads to off-peak times maybe, or utilizing stored energy more intelligently because it's a hub, it's a mind. Cybersecurity, obviously, the intelligent circuit guardian would incorporate all that cybersecurity so it couldn't be hacked. Again, I'll be honest with you, that's totally out of the field of competency, but
you could even have assist maintenance, for example. You could have a system where it can monitor the load in a 2-year use, and it can then go to the operative. Oh, hang on, these are the loads. These are circuits have been heavily loaded for the longest period of time. So you can have obviously much more efficient maintenance checks done instead of just having people sample the stuff that's not used as much. It's it's a lot of good valuable data. It's a case of identifying all the useful data,
and I'm not
and find the right way to kind of use it.
And I'm not trying to make this about me or anything that I want to achieve, because I wanted to, I could just not tell anyone, try and develop it. Pointless. This is about, you know what we've always said, Dave. We put ideas into the industry. People want to take them, go for it. Listen, I'm not interested in anything else. So immunity, immune to behaviours of the fixed installation, understanding the fixed installation so the loads will operate in any flow of current in any direction, and immune to DC blinding. That would be really cool. We could kill that off. To quote Paul Skirm, take your type A's and throw them in the bin. Are we going to be going type B plus before we start to realise that these connected loads, there is a problem? Henceforth, the ICG may work. It might work. But again, great pictures from AI. Some of the barriers we have to break through. And the biggest barrier to break through, I like to call it the mirror. Basically, we need to look in the mirror ourselves. Do we want it? Do we need it? Most sparks go, there's nothing wrong. Etc. And yeah, there may be, because let's be honest about it, John does his bread and butter stuff and will do till the day he retires. But there is a ever festering market that wants to grow, adopt, use these new technologies, see what the benefits are. We can't run away from the digital world. The biggest problem to this, and one of the biggest, is the British standards. The perception that we are swamped with British standards. And I did say to everyone, Dave, who here when they join a company are trained on all the British standards they're supposed to know?
Mate, I've got a room in my centre. I had some lads on a course not long ago, and I said, have a look. They talked about knowing so much. I said, come in. I took them from my office where I've got main and most books. I took them into another room, which is supposed to be where I do some recording. I haven't had time to get onto that yet. But I've got a room that looks not too different to this picture. And they were like, oh my God. And I was like, with all the years I've done consulting and all the stuff I've had to use, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's that. Yeah. And the fact is, it's here because you can't know it all, but you need to have access to the resource.
Yes.
So you use it when you need to use it.
I think there's about 26,000 British standards in total. I think to buy them is about well over 10 million. But
you said earlier though, some of them are freely accessible. Check out your local library. I mean,
so if you're from Northern Ireland, they're free.
Yeah. Where I live in the northeast, Durham Library, there's an online library. They've got a BSI subscription, and it's got quite a lot in it. I can access it and view it online.
What was the place online? Do you remember there's a website online where you can buy them from? I can't remember the country though. Is it Latvia or somewhere?
Oh gosh, Estonia.
It might be Estonia, but there is, so you can buy standards from the country standard website quite legally. There's nothing legally dodgy about them. You can buy them, but instead of paying £300 for a standard, you can buy them for £30.
I remember we did that once actually.
Yes, we did.
We were trying to find something, and then he got it legally. Yes. And it was all published, printed in English and everything.
Well, if you remember, I went on the German website and I bought the Type B standard for RCDs, and then Paul Skirm translated it from German to English.
He did, yeah.
But he didn't just translate it; he translated it and reproduced it in the exact same format in English, which German standards did not have. No. And then we sent it back to German standards and said, "There you are, you're welcome." Because we actually engaged them and said, "Look, do you have it in English?" He went, "No, we don't." All right, we'll do it. So we bought the German copy of Paul when he was, funnily enough, I think he was actually in hospital with his cancer at the time doing it. But yeah, he actually converted. So British standards, there's a perception that you have to know they exist and not be afraid of them and ask questions. There is the other perception that obviously we're on this mad race to sustainability, and I'll be honest with you, I see it. I am seeing organisations installing EV chargers hell for leather, and then there being loads of problems and issues, but the people who installed them and led the projects pack up, bugger off, and nobody takes accountability for it, and someone's left them off.
I had the same. I mean, I was doing some work last year with a couple of organisations. I started doing some talks with another streaming service, and it's all about sustainability of power, because obviously in the film and TV sector, the biggest issues with the sustainability for them is travelling for crews and stuff. So a lot of things are now, they're trying to use local crews, local teams, and power. So I did this little diploma in sustainability, looked at economical, social, and all this stuff, and there's so much more to actually achieving sustainability than we actually think. An awful lot of things that we think are doing good for sustainability in other parts of the world will be create significant harm. So it's definitely one of those things where it will come in as how we design systems as well. It's something that I've started to look into doing on my design course, is looking at how we look at sustainability as well. So many companies will be looking for those kind of deliverables from contractors.
And this is the thing. I mean, John, you're quite lucky in that regard. So sustainability under the Engineering Council is reduce, reuse, recycle. I like it. I'm not a fan of net zero, because net zero is an economic term. It's become a catch-all phrase for where we are in this economic decade. We are in the net zero economy, whereas sustainability, reduce, reuse, recycle. Now, the other thing that people fear is the race to the bottom. Now, I didn't know this, Dave, but last year the grandfather rights ended for a lot of electricians. So loads of people have left this trade. So it just seems that things are not getting any better. It's getting worse.
Yeah, a year last September it ended when they transitioned. It's basically when everything moved over to the Electrician Plus system and the requirements for MVQ level 3. But the problem is so many people that came into the industry through a indirect means, through obviously Part P and other routes, have now been in the industry for well over 10 years. So they'll claim grandfather rights, having never actually done what's recognised as a building services installation level 3 MVQ.
But then there's the gap of everyone who qualified in the 90s, like me, who couldn't get access to AM2 centres.
No, I've got guys enroll with me, and the reason they've had to enroll on the experienced worker portfolio is because they've been running jobs for 20, 30 years. Then they suddenly realise next week, because they couldn't get their gold card renewed, they weren't allowed onto the job anymore, that they actually are running, and they've been running these jobs. And so I've obviously done some work on a level 2 diploma, which is just done as quickly as possible, because it just basically confirms existing RPL, recognised prior learning, and then we get that portfolio out of the way as quick as possible. And I've actually got here in the drawer, I've got the ECS have I have it in my drawer. I'll find it in a moment. They have a gold stripe card, which replaces the gold card. It only has an 18-month life. So I get them signed onto the portfolio. We knock out the portfolio when they have it, in the weekends, at the week, whenever they're not working. And just get done and out of the way. But they also have to do the AM2E. But it just means going back to work. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. But a lot of people who are doing it appreciate why they're doing it, and they see the validity in it. But a lot of people are going, sod this, and they're just finishing. And I kind of see the benefit. I kind of see the reasons for both.
So I had a gold card. I had a black manager's card. Now, if I want my black, I let them go because it was basically just a tax to get on site, and I'm a client, and we don't need that.
Let's carry out the gentleman's name. It's experienced worker.
Fantastic.
Card. See, I've got 3 of these here, right? They don't want them, but the digital one goes on the MyECS sites. They're immediately back on sites. So they get onto the experienced worker portfolio, and we have 18 months of that card life for that to get knocked out.
So
and then they get the gold back.
To get my black manager's card, I need to do an MVQ level 7.
7?
Apparently.
With whom? Like the ILM or what?
With a recognised provider.
An MVQ in what?
Construction management, project management.
So you're probably looking at ILM or something like that.
But I've done nearly 30 years. I've got loads of professional qualifications up at Kazooie. I've got 18 city and guilds, and yet I'm still told I need to do an MVQ.
It's just
when I do 700 hours CPD a year.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent 5 years doing this now, and how many times have we had to come back to say, how do we prove competency?
Consistently.
Right. Well, this Absolutely. Is the thing, and we're seeing this in the new 5839, where they're now starting to look at the word behaviours instead of just knowledge and experience. They're looking at behaviours, which is how we do it with apprentices. Starting at the beginning, we look at the development of their behaviours as they then develop occupational behaviours. That's now coming in 5839 in an update, and that should hopefully maybe carry over into other standards. We need to identify how to properly track what behaviours should be met. And behaviours would be people who are very proactive to things like CPD and to understanding what they need to do. And there are many guys like that. It's finding a way for them to distinguish themselves from others.
There is an issue with that.
And that's what the existing strategy doesn't do. It doesn't help distinguish those with those good behaviours from those with the bad.
Well, mate, today I've been with guys who work for the DNO who've done 20 plus years and they didn't even know what phenolic was. They didn't know half these issues, so they got introduced to it. But there is a fundamental lack of training, so people need to be doing more training. That's for sure.
Yeah. Case in point, that thing we discussed earlier on, where there's clearly an issue, it's been resolved, but the final solution is not something that is in your interest. And you should be made aware of that, and you should be monitoring that, because what's happened was bound to happen.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Just back to the presentation before John falls asleep or just texts me and says, "Shut up, Paul, you're a raving lunatic." Don't worry, John, we'll get on to you in a minute. So I love some of the images. AI has generated some of the best images I've ever used to one of the biggest challenges that someone who comes off the tools and tries to manage electrical installations, building services, whatever you want to call it, is how do you orate or narrate create the conversation that convinces people who don't know that they don't know. It's so difficult. It really is, putting that convincing rhetoric. And sometimes images are great because I can put this up on the screen and go, there you go, there's a general company, safety first, the most important thing, surrounded by profits and money.
Exactly.
There are conflict of interest there. And I tried to use images because I actually used this on an employer. And I said, I went into work one day and they said, "This is what you're doing, Paul?" No problem. 2 weeks later, I went back to my boss. I went, da-da, and he went, "Oh, I didn't ask you to do that." I said, "You very clearly did in front of witnesses." "Oh, yeah, well, we've slightly changed it." And I was like, Jesus Christ, like the goalpost being moved. And I used that in my next presentation to my boss. And I said to him, working for you is like goalpost moving because you keep moving them. So sometimes visuals can get across. One of the things that I like using this is left eye, right eye. Phrase that gets used in some corporate environments. The left eye sees what the right eye sees is two potentially different things. So one person, a lot of tradesmen will see red tape, red tape, red tape. We are becoming so process driven, so much paperwork that a lot of people are giving up industry because they're just drowning in bureaucracy. But also the asset managers, and I've used this, they see people talking consistently about saving money, value add, and all these terms around the word value, but everything they're doing is actually wasting money, which is not value. So in trying to do something good, we're actually doing a negative, but we're not looking at measuring the negative. So how do we know we're doing good? Henceforth, that was a very powerful visual I used in a presentation, and a lot of people chuckled because they agreed with their chuckling. Like, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Talk about value on the bonfire. So what I was trying to do was get people to say I to AI, because obviously I've come up with the Intelligent Circuit Guardian. That could potentially be something that the industry adopts. I've not trademarked it, so do what you want with it, folks. And also it could help horticultural and agricultural installations make better value for farmers, give them more efficiencies while not putting people out of job, and allowing them to update to the digital age while having things to help support them. So yeah, there is the potential for all that. I mean, drones monitoring cattle, all sorts of stuff that people can do. So what I wanted to do was talk about the next bit, which was MODUS. So this was how do we get it to fit in a box, Paul? What does this look like? This was kind of an extension of what we did, Dave. So it came up with a few names. Modular Open Dynamic User System, Modular Open DC User System, Modular Open Direct User System, Modular Open Distributed Universal System. So MODUS is basically a future-proof. So the ICG is an intelligent hub, but the MODUS is a future-proof consumer unit with advanced features and an acronym that reflected its flexibility and innovation. Now, it doesn't have to be MODUS. Anyone in industry who's watching or listening to this, go away, create your own goddamn thing. But what I was trying to do, and in my defence, I was working till 4 a.m. in the morning writing this, was I was trying to come up with a modular fuse board. Now, I know there's a picture on the screen of the Wilex double stack. I've used that previously. But have you come across, and John, you probably have, like twin wall Sorel boxes where they've got like a twin wall part, and you sometimes get a gasket, and the inside to help seal it to an IP68. Sometimes it's just a lip on the edge. Sometimes it literally is a twin wall, like a Sorel box. Have you ever seen them about?
Yeah, most of them are the single.
Most of them say you house basher, you. So I have seen them. And so what I was thinking was, right, what are the problems we got with fuse boards? The metal. We've got potential of broken neutrals. We've got, and let's be perfect, we should probably never have gone away from plastics, but that's another story for another day. So why don't we have a twin wall consumer unit, the exterior being plastic, insulated? So our head, our earth terminal, and our fuse board is an insulated board, so it's safe. On the inside of the board, we have metal, so it's a steel frame construction, insulated. Okay, so it's a twin wall system.
Would that be reinforced plastic?
It could be whatever you want, yeah.
Okay.
Again, we're not going into the science of the materials here, just to be clear. It's a metal...
I'm building in my head, mate, right now.
Fireproof consumer unit, all right? It's a fireproof consumer unit, metal box, twin wall, so it can have a skim or it can have a whatever you want. But what I was thinking was, okay, well, I've got my box, it's twin wall. So it's going to be a skeletal frame that's solid, but how do I then add to it? So inside, I can then put my DIN rail, I can put all the usual features of a consumer unit for all my breakers. No problem. But then in 20 years' time, I've got some money, I want to extend the life of my wiring, I want to do this. Well, the ICG is available. Okay, so I've got this 4 sides of a consumer unit. One, I open up the cover and slide out the left wall of the twin wall consumer unit. Okay, like you would unscrew like the top of a Sorel box where you've got a gland plate, but you would just it would be slotted. So you'd literally pull it out, and then you can take that away, and you can then put another unit next to it, so it bolts in, connects in, and then that holds the MODUS unit. So the MODUS unit goes in it. But then as part of that, somebody then wants to do, say, I don't know, DC solar. You then do the same at the top. You slide out the frame, you then put a new box on the top, and that holds all your DC with your RJ45s. And it's modular. It's boxes that just effectively slide a piece out, put a new piece next to it, link it in so it's all part of one solid, rigid system, but it allows you to just adapt and add. So DC above, AC below, MODUS to the left, battery storage to the right, etc., etc. You just add to it. You're not having to rip the entire board out. You're just modifying the board in the most simplest, easiest way possible. That picture I just chucked in there because I couldn't find anything else at 4 a.m. in the morning. So henceforth, the concept of modularity, creating a consumer unit or an electrical system that's customizable, adaptable and future-proof, ensuring it remains relevant and functional for decades. So the key principles of modularity, hence MODUS, are interchangeable components, so a core frame with replaceable modules allowing upgrades, repairs, system expansions without replacing the entire unit, compatibility with both AC and DC, enabling seamless integration with emerging technologies like solar and batteries. And again, the ICG would help integrate all that. Scalability, so you could add more and more and more. So each unit you put onto it can be extended further. So these are just adaptable boxes that would... John's sitting there going, I'm going to ring the hospital in a few minutes. Forgive me, John, just let me get through this. So smart monitoring, the central monitoring, so the MODUS Mind, we called it, but it's now the ICG, obviously, to track power consumption, detect faults like broken pen, monitor power quality, etc. Connect smart meters, ease of installation and maintenance, effectively your pan head screws, your penny washers at the back, and then it's just effectively a link between boxes that you can then add, which gives you that structural rigidity, and the corners are your effectual structural points that then allow the twin wall system to... By the way, people listen to this going, this geezer's batshit crazy. I'm not saying it's going to work. This was a really fascinating journey I went on with AI, talking about a completely different way of thinking, but is based in the fundamentals of what we do now. So ease of installation and maintenance, standardized interfaces, glandable sections, quick and efficient installation, plug and play modules, all available in various boards now. Enhanced safety, so advanced protective devices, so thermochromic stuff. You could put your what's the stuff called, the tubes that blow, envirographs in there as well. So you can have it clear, user-friendly to make the system approachable for non-tech. I'm not saying just on non-technical users, the users of it, not the installers. I will never ever design anything to put an electrician out of a job. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not that stupid. Modular sections, different purposes such as renewables. So you can have a new section below that looks at the next generation or iteration of renewables. We talked about PID and parasitic capacitance. Is there monitoring that could be done there? Is there outputs from the solar inverter that could make it safer? I don't know. If it could become a modular box that connect into a system, it might work. Henceforth, the intelligent circuit guardian being one of those key points. Ignore that picture. I then asked, by the way, AI to. This is crazy. So for those who are watching, AI is terrible at drawing pictures of future electrical installation boards. I mean, that makes no bloody sense whatsoever. That's like something from Red Dwarf, that somebody would design for Red Dwarf to look like a space age panel. But it was trying to demonstrate the visuals of the principle of modularity. It just did it really badly, like really, really badly, because that's basically just a Sorel box with like you get on BMS engineers and panel manufacturers. That's not what I was aiming for. I was aiming for a fuse board that's self-contained, twin wall. That in 5 years' time, someone could come up and just slide out the left or right hand side and go, screw that in, add some links, that solidifies it. That's now become a bigger unit with two covers. And there are some now plugs that go into the back of these that allow it to be upgraded and more versatile. That's what I was thinking of. So that's the end of the MODUS and the ICG concept. The other concept that I came up with, which Dave, you've already seen, which was a lot of people are now using meta glasses to record everything they do and all that. And there's these, I don't know what you call them, they're like the visors for the games. But you could use augmented reality to a lot of buildings now, a lot of new installations are built using BIM 3D models. So, and it's not very hard, because I did speak to a BIM expert I know at London Underground. You could quite easily put all the points of isolation and all the hazards into that system. So as you're walking around wearing this, you could actually see where the points of isolation are. It could also be used to record and update any models if there are any change, depending on whether it's got LiDAR capabilities and all sorts. So,
as dumb as dumb or far-fetched as that may be, we are going to be at a point in generations' time where people just won't be used to physically reading instructions or manuals. They'll be looking for the virtual interaction that shows them how to do things.
They'll end up picking up the phone. If I can show you my phone, they'll end up picking up the phone.
Augmented reality or something.
And they'll AR on the phone, and it will tell them where the isolation points are, whether it be glasses or their phone. Yeah. This is where we are heading. So again, we're not doing it at the moment. So I just wanted to talk about stuff that people aren't thinking about or talking about, and say, hey, what can the people in the room do about this? Obviously, I'm not rich, and I'm not an app developer, and I'm not an expert in all this, but it was about, I was able to come up with these sorts of conversations with AI. So don't say no to AI. Say I to AI, which is yes in Northern Irish. So the augmented reality for safe isolation was from apps to glasses or back to apps. Map out the installation, identify the hazards, create audible and visual warnings, record any tasks for improvements. You can even teach it to identify hazards using AI. Identify point of isolation, create records, connects to MODUS maybe if you wanted to do that. And it's just safer. It's about being safe at the end of the day. That's why we came up with it. So it was augmented reality for safe isolation, whether it's be a tablet or glasses. And that was kind of the end of it. But the one thing I did love to put in my favourite TV show from Ireland is Father Ted. It reminded me of the whole careful now, down with this sort of thing. Two of the main AI tools that I have been using is ChatGPT and Copilot, henceforth the really bad edits that we've done on Fixed Radio. But basically, I have found it a phenomenal tool. And I've said out loud that with ChatGPT and Copilot, I can go into Copilot, which bolts onto Microsoft, and I can ask it when I asked for staff, when I asked for this, when I did this. I recently am recruiting for staff. I put all the CVs into Copilot and then put the JD in, and I asked it, what are the benefits and the disbenefits of each individual? How do they best align with the job description? And give us a score. And it did. And it picked all of them, scored them in a logical manner. And then I manual check, because obviously I don't trust it. And it was perfect. And I realized you ask the right questions in, you have, well, rephrase it. You put the data in, you need to know what your outcomes are. And that was kind of the warning. So I came up with this picture with ChatGPT, and that is crap in, crap out. But I think for good electrical engineers, good construction professionals, good manufacturers, if they're willing to go on the journey and have the debate, it will help give them the ability to narrate a logic that maybe individually we can't have. But they've got to know what the outcomes are. And the outcomes for this was about, what are we not doing with regards to safe isolation that could be done? And what are we not doing in regards to protective devices that we could do? Henceforth, putting the backbone of those standards into ChatGPT gave that footing to be able to understand what I wanted as an outcome. We weren't taught like that years ago. That wasn't a tool that we had. So for me, conclusion was AI is and will continue to be what we call a value add for those in the commercial industrial world. Safety can be improved. It can create new ideas. MODUS, all these new things. Efficiency without job losses, which can occur, but I want efficiencies. I don't want job losses. If we get it right, the value to the economy could be huge, but the life cycle of asset is key. I'm not saying MODUS or the ICG is the way forward in any way, shape, or form, so please don't criticize me for it. I'm saying it's an idea. If it has legs, run with it. They're not my legs. Take it and grow it into what we know will be the future, because this ain't going to stop, folks. Sustainability's got to be embedded. Reduce, reuse, recycle equals net zero. Well, does it? How many people have a net zero policy? That was a question to the open group. And then I asked also, have you defined your net zero goals? I have one at work. It's fundamentally sustainability, but adding revenue and staff to it, which is quite a different twist, i.e. carbon, sustainability, people, right person, right place, right time. And we need to understand that the industry is going to grow with this drive to net zero, carbon capture, replacement of grid, sustainability, nuclear, all this. Every role will develop into specialisms. So the future is immense. It's absolutely immense. And I think AI will be a tool, but you've got to know your fundamental principles. What do I want as an outcome before you start putting crap in, basically? So those who have knowledge of outcomes, inexperienced hands need guidance, which is why my young apprentice has been banned until he's got the knowledge to understand what the outcomes are. I would recommend to anyone try AI. But verify it, sample it, don't trust implicitly. Write your own guidance, which was to the wider audience. Define what value is to you is an interesting journey for a lot of people in a lot of contractors, because one person's value is another person's hindrance. It's quite an interesting journey to ask everyone in a company, please define value. Because if you've got 20 departments, you've got 20 different definitions. But if you can take them and use AI to create an aligned vision, that actually drives some different behaviors. Don't be afraid of research. And obviously, AI will not replace you. You should be still replacing it. You should be unlosable because you are the controller of this. This is not like a Terminator. I did actually create a Terminator picture, but it was quite scary. So I might just put it on Instagram, and that was kind of it, really. And I did put, just for everyone listening and watching, if you develop anything you see here, any profits you make, go to charity. I'm after nothing. I don't want anything. Thank you for all your criticism from those snippets, but please, as we've always said, trust but verify. This is an idea, it's a concept. I am not your mum. I don't tell anyone in this industry what to do, how to think, how to feel, or anything else. And that's kind of the little journey I've gone on AI. Now, John, talk to me.
Yeah, well, it's all valid stuff. I mean, AI is not going away. It's here, and you can't undo it now because we've got it. So you better make use of it, because otherwise other people are going to make use of it and you're not. So that is valid. But like you said, if you've got to actually look at what it's producing and verify it every time, because otherwise, yeah, it could be great stuff that it's made, but if you ask it things, it can come up with answers which are way off the mark. And there's a dangerous trend on this already. And if you actually go to Google and search for stuff these days, you've probably noticed at the top, it's got that Gemini thing. It gives you some sort of AI generated suggestions for what you're looking for. And a lot of times it's perfectly valuable. Other times it's complete junk. And I mean, like, it's so far off the mark that it's just made up junk, or it's just picked it from some random place that was completely accurate and all this stuff. And I've already seen people going there, searching for a thing, taking a screenshot of that and then sticking it on their social media bits and using this as some kind of evidence as to what a thing actually is without actually looking at what they've actually copied and what it's actually said. I say sometimes it's correct, other times not so much. So yeah, definitely you've got to. It's a nice tool, but it's not a magic box that gives you all the correct answers.
So I'm going to kind of finish up with a last story on this, and this is quite an interesting one. So I was driving around. I try and make sure once a week I drive around with a young apprentice, and we talk engineering stuff. So we were stuck in traffic, and so we were going through cable calcs, and he was trying to convince me about AI. So I said, okay, use it. Design a cable calc. There you go. Hit the button. ChatGPT. Go on. So he did. He said, give me a cable calc for a cable. What's the load? I said, 1 kilowatt. Nice, easy number. 1 kilowatt load. How far? I went, 20 meters. So anyway, went away. Basically spoke to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, he said, to UK standard BS 7671, blah, and it came back with like a 2.5 mil would be more than adequate. More than adequate. Okay, I said, great. You're happy with that? I went, yeah. I said, okay. 800 meters, half a mile, is the roundabout. I want a 1 kilowatt load that long. So ask again. So he did. He asked again, and it came back and it said, yeah, 10 mil. So 10 mil, you're happy with that? And he went, yeah. I said, great. So you get a 10 mil cable run all that way. He went, yeah. I said, great. So now think about your external influences. He went, well, so think about your external influences. So we're going to run this cable. We can't just run it in the road. Can we run it through the trees? I went, oh, yeah. Okay. So let's run it through the trees. Let's think about the selection criteria. And so basically, long story short, it ended up going to like it went up to a 16 mil. And then he got really confident that he'd covered everything. It was an armoured 16 mil, blah, blah, blah. So then I said, right, you're happy with that? And he went, yes. I said, bet the mortgage on it. He went, yes. I said, okay, great. And I said to ChatGPT, can you please apply the adiabatic equation? Boom, 23 mil minimum CPC conductor. So I said, can you now apply that? And he went, yeah, you need a 25 mil armoured. He put his mortgage on a 16 mil. He needed to know every question, every input into ChatGPT to get the right output. And this is how you have to teach people. You have to make mistakes in a controlled manner.
This is what worries me. This is one of the challenges with just any design software. There's a lot of fields there that just put in one, which means obviously no consideration.
Yep.
And it doesn't stop and say, hang on a minute, have you considered triplets? Have you considered the loading? Have you considered the grouping? Have you considered the non-grouped or the individual size grouping? Yes, like with grouping, we have if we have 3-phase and single phase, we're supposed to adjust our grouping to match the number of quantities. So there's a quantity of 3-phase or a quantity of single phase. You don't just add the numbers conductors. There are factors you have to apply.
We were designing last year a cable to run in a canopy on a railway platform, and I think the designer had allowed, I think it was 35 degrees on his temperature. We used a temperature monitor up in the canopy during the summer.
Wow.
52.
52, yeah.
52. Put that back in the machine. Yeah, cable got bigger. It got a hell of a lot bigger. Hell of a lot bigger when you start considering length of run, volt drop, adiabatic, and temperature.
And the flip side of that, though, is utilization. I'm doing some project designs right now for EAL, and we're looking at I'm writing a design for them on showers, and their model answers normally would say, you apply no diversity to them because they're thermostatically controlled loads. I said, yeah, but if you put in 3 showers in a gymnasium, in a sports hall changing room, they're not going to be 3 simultaneous loads at full power. So we'll lose 1 out of every 3 or something like that for diversity. But these decisions aren't always in there. And I remember when I was speaking with Graham Kenyon about the on-site guide and the maximum demand diversity, he said that's so out of date now.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a book
so out of date
last year on diversity and maximum demand that was being written.
I think he's got an awful lot more. I think he's got an awful lot more on his desk, I think, at the moment, with regards to all these new technologies. But and that's the thing. So a lot of software doesn't really know what to go with other than its own idea, and that's what we would do is applying engineering logic. A lot of demand, a lot of design software. No one's going to take the responsibility for their own design software's engineering logic. They'll follow a standard or nothing.
Yeah.
and so a lot of stuff gets wasteful.
So I'm hoping today people who've listened to all this realise that a 20-second clip isn't the end of the world, and that it's an opinion piece. So this is the journey we've been on. It's a fascinating journey. I'm glad we've been able to share it with everyone. Go on your own journey, share your own story. At the end of the day, final thoughts. We'll wrap this one up, Mr. Ward.
Yeah, so just be careful with these tools. Like all tools, they're quite sharp and can cause damage if you use them inappropriately. So just make sure what's coming out of these is actually sensible before using it randomly and assuming that it's all correct.
So let's pretend it's just us three friends here. John, do you think what you've seen makes me more mental than you thought I was?
Not really.
Excellent. Marvellous. Mr. Watts, your final thought?
It's AI has been something I've been playing around with for a while. In the training space, it's like we have to look into, because a lot of learners can utilize it for regards to their submissions and things. I have trialed ChatGPT myself to test it. Electrical subjects are quite a challenge for AI, especially because an awful lot, as you say, garbage in, garbage out, but also a lot of the information in is not standardized to here, so the language will be different. So it is a tool, but you've got to be very aware of the boundaries of that tool. And also, as John alluded to, AIs are very different. There's ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok. I've done a lot of time.
Copilot.
Copilot.
So you use Microsoft. What a phenomenal add-on that is.
But when it comes to like the kind of the general ones where you just look for information, Gemini's got some different opinions on things that are just sometimes factually incorrect. Grok has some little qualms with it. If you use them as illustrating tools, they're quite fun. It can't draw electrics for hell on earth. They can't do anything with electrics.
It's all American and European.
I've got so many pictures trying to draw current through a conductor and all that stuff to try and simplify as a presentation. Because when you make presentations, the last thing you want is to have someone email you 3 months later, say, you use one of my pictures, So you want to try and create your own original pictures. I've got John Paul on board, by the way. JP, he's doing some images with me, which is very good, really good. And what I'm mentioning him, was it JP Electric? Is it?
Yes.
Everybody should follow him if they're not following him. He's really good with his illustrations, and he's helping me and doing some images for some of my material coming up this year, actually. Because getting original images is very difficult, and that's what I wanted to use AI for, to assist with getting original images. It's going to take a while, but it's a tool. That's exactly how I'm using it.
As you're well aware that some of my images were being used by a certain training company in Scotland without my permission, so they were told to stop. Although you have my eternal blessing to use all of my images forever and ever in a day. But yeah, right, we'll end this there. So that's AI, the quantum leap in electrical installations. It's coming in some form. It affects us all differently. And until the next one, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourself and each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.